Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week, once again, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, Trevor?
What is going on? Today, we're going to be talking about a flurry of Xbox Game Pass games that Cameron has been playing, including Signalis, PowerWash Simulator, Citizen Sleeper, as well as a couple of his finishing his thoughts, I guess, on Wrath of the Righteous, which we talked about in the last episode a couple weeks ago, as well as Monster Camp. And I am going to give some spoiler-free thoughts on Black Adam, which I did end up seeing last week when it came out. But since we didn't do a show last week, didn't talk about it. Before we dive into any of that, a little bit of housekeeping for you. I just want to give a wrap-up shout-out here, since this is the Halloween Day episode of That Nerdy Site Show. A shout-out to our Halloween month on That D Plus show this last month. We started it off with Hocus Pocus 2. Then we talked about Werewolf by Night. Then we did Halloween Town High. And Logan and I wrapped it up this last weekend with Treehouse of Horror episodes 4, 5, and 6 of The Simpsons, including arguably the best of the Treehouse of Horror segments in The Shining, the Shining parody, iconic from Treehouse of Horror episode 5. So go check out our Halloween themed stuff if you're feeling like some more Halloween content the day that this goes live. Other than that,
Does that include the one where it's Homer's life is on trial and he has to with the devil?
That's Treehouse of Horror 4, and yeah, that was the first segment that we talked about, which is that's another fabulous standout one with because Homer trades his soul to the devil for a donut, and the devil turns out to be Flanders, which was a brilliant choice back in '93, I think, when that happened. Yep.
Super good.
Lots of good segments in this particular run of Treehouse of Horror episodes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Go check out that. And then this week on That D Plus show, we're going to be talking about She-Hulk, since that wrapped up kind of in the middle of our Halloween month. So we will be covering that this week. Other than that, if you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. So Cam, kick it off for me. You said you've been playing a whole bunch of Xbox Game Pass games. Some of these I've seen other people buzzing about. At least one of these I checked out as a Game Pass game months ago. So we can talk about that a little bit. I'll let you drive the ship here with Xbox Game Pass stuff.
Sure. I'll start off with kind of the most basic one. PowerWash Simulator. Mm-hmm. It's something that came out earlier this year, I believe. And
I want to say it came out last year on PC.
It might have come out last year,
but it came to Game Pass earlier this year. Yeah, that's the one I have played of the games you brought up.
Yeah, that game is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. What an amazing little sim. As somebody who has, so growing up, my dad, when I was 17 or 18, my dad got a power washer. Mm-hmm. But this is an old school power washer. So you had to, so it didn't come with an onboard compressor. And my dad owned an air compressor, mm-hmm. Which he used for just a variety of, if you have pressurized tools, things move so much quicker when you're doing projects. And so my dad just had a universal adaptive, air compressor.
Yeah.
That was always my job to set up.
Okay.
My dad was like, you don't have to do this thing. You just have to help me set it up. Go get the air compressor. And I have no doubt that a few years after that, I had to go to the chiropractor for some serious realignment. I have no doubt that air compressor contributed to that. Mm-hmm. Because I was a heavy son of a bitch.
Yeah.
In fact, to the point where I used to, we had a push cart for carrying loads of boxes or whatever it is. Usually we kept it around for Christmas because my parents had 24 bins of Christmas ornaments and decorations. And by bin, I mean those big tubs.
Yeah.
And so we usually had that around for that and other uses for it. And so I used it to carry the air compressor around. And my dad got a power washer, and I have to say, first off, power washers are amazing. Without a doubt, I like. It's no surprise I follow power wash channels or like accounts on TikTok, because they're phenomenal. But they're also a massive pain to set up, and so this gives you all the pleasure of cleaning stuff off without the hassle of setting up stuff to do it with. What an awesome little like simulator. I really think sim games have just gotten to a point of just being really, really amazing. And I think on that level, PowerWash Simulator is at like the top, like simple premise, incredible execution. Just top to bottom, just a phenomenal execution on that.
Yeah. I had a ton of fun playing that. Yeah, a few months back when I was just kind of starved and looking for something new to play. And I had remembered seeing like a whole bunch of GIFs or little video clips on Twitter when the game originally came out, and like just being like, wow, that really does hit like a very satisfying like OCD kind of feel, just clearing out those items and doing all that stuff. And as somebody who, like I am terrible about keeping like my own like apartment or my car clean or whatever. The idea of throwing that power wash thing on, and like the first level being like, all right, you're gonna wash the van that is basically going to be your like company van, your business van or whatever, and just kind of like, turning the nozzle 90 degrees or whatever and just spraying down kind of like section by section, little ding that you get, and the little flash of light when a part of the space is like 100% clean and cleared, what is immensely satisfying. And just the vibrant like ideas and locations that you get. Like I want to say like the second level that I played was like basically a backyard, and it was just kind of like, all right, got a whole bunch of stuff to clean here, but I'm just like, I can like break it out into segments. I can go clean the shed, or I can go clean like the step thing, or the brick rim of like the planter or something. Just kind of like walk through section by section or piece by piece, and just take immense satisfaction in playing that. And then you get like into later levels where it's like, all right, you can do all this stuff with just the water, but if you pay a little bit of money and like get some of the soap stuff, you'll go through things a lot quicker, and just lots of satisfying stuff to be had there with PowerWash Simulator. I really enjoyed it, and it was very much like it's such an oddly satisfying game. I'm like, I know, like this isn't like groundbreaking gameplay or anything like that, and this will never be like in my game of the year kind of conversation, but this was a hell of a way to spend a weekend while I was listening to podcasts and catching up on shows or something like that, and just kind of like, I can mindlessly zone out on the game while I can be paying attention to Dimension 20 episode or something like that. So
it really, I literally, I was like, I'm kind of like getting a little bored with it. I was like, oh, what I just realized I'm not like listening to anything while I'm doing this. And so I literally went to my Spotify, put on like a front bottoms mix, and all of a sudden I'm like jamming to like Midwestern pop, like Midwestern like pop punk, while I'm just like doing a bunch of cleaning. And I'm like, this is just like 100% like the experience. And I'm loving this. It's so good. It's truly fun.
How many like levels of the game have you gone through?
I finished like 5 levels.
Okay.
I did the small levels, of course, being the van, the golf cart, and the dirt bike. And then the major levels that I've done is the backyard, the bungalow house, and the playground. Playground was a massive one. It was truly, I was like, I don't know how I'm like supposed to clean all of this, and like you just take it piece by piece, and you start somewhere and you end it, and I was really blown away by it.
That one, playground is a lot of fun because it's like just such like you're clearing it off and you're getting like all this fun, vibrant colors and stuff like that. Really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that one. There's a skate park level in there some point that was like a lot of fun and very satisfying.
Okay, I'm excited for that one.
And then eventually so like in what you've done so far, you've probably started like, oh, here's a ladder so you can get up to like a top level or a higher level or something like that. Eventually you start getting like, all right, here's basically scaffolding so you can like walk up 2 or 3 levels or something like that.
Awesome.
And start kind of like playing with different things. Like one of the most satisfying levels I did was like a firehouse, like a basically a fire
Nice.
a fire training facility. So there's like a 4-story tower out in the back that's all like burnt up because it's the idea being like it's where they simulate fires for their training firefighters and stuff. So like
that makes sense. Yeah.
cleaning that whole thing inside and out was a lot of fun. And then like in the front area is like a makeshift like hotel kind of thing or 2-story kind of thing with like a garage component and a whole bunch of stuff. And it was just like, yeah, like you start getting to some of these levels and it's like, this is a lot, but I'm just going to hop in and I'm going to take this like bit by bit. And then like when you finish that, 4-story tower or whatever, it's like, that like, I did all that. I cleaned that whole thing. It looks great now. How satisfying. And then I love the little bit that you get at the end. Like when you finish a level, it kind of like does a speed frame through of you cleaning things. So you can kind of see like, oh, that's right. That's how it started. And then you see like how you cleaned it through and how it ends and stuff like that. Yeah.
I did not know it did that. So when I was cleaning the van, I may have like sprayed off some choice words.
Oh, so yeah, or you drew like
So I was
penises
like,
in the windows and stuff, and then
yeah, stuff like that, and then like I just like wrote on the side of the van just like giant like,
yeah,
other word, a pussy cat without the cat. And I was just like, I want to write something. I was like, because I was listening to something, and somebody yelled at somebody, as like. Not a seriousness, not like it was like they were being ironic when they were calling somebody that.
Yeah.
Because somebody's like, man, what if we were like more sensitive about people's feelings and emotions? And somebody was like, and said that as a joke.
Yeah.
And so I was like, haha, yeah, I'm gonna draw that on the side of the van. I'm like, okay, that was fun. Now to like spray everything else off the side of the van down. And then I saw it go, and I'm like, oh, is it like showing a simulation? And then it shows like when I sprayed it across, I was like, oh no.
Yeah. Especially if you do that like first and then you leave it on the whole time or whatever. Yeah. I think I got a similar vibe on that, but with just like a wash me kind of like, the like, oh, I'm gonna write out wash me on here. And then I'm going to like, come back to that later or something like that. Yeah. Lots of fun. And just like, yeah, such a fun way of presenting. Like I'm not much one for like the life simulator games. Like you're never going to find me playing like, truck simulator or some of those, but
train simulator interests me though. Okay. Train simulator does interest me. Truck simulator I think might interest me. Gas station simulator does. The ones where there's like objectives, like that's what I really liked about it, because like before, when I've tried out a sim life game like years ago, like one of the early farm simulator games, there just wasn't a strong direction. And the way that they have them laid out now is phenomenal. Okay. And I especially love it where it's like, I'm like, what am I missing? Like, why am I not completed this mission? And I kind of like go through and I'm like looking at stuff and I see, oh, I left a little bit of a smidge there. And I'm like, did I really? And I hit tab and that brings up and it highlights it. Yeah, I'm like, you see like, right here, I see I missed this like angle on it. Yeah. And I'm like, that's so cool. Yeah. Like it gets so in depth to it. It gets so what I really appreciated on those bigger projects like the playground, if you clean up like 95% of it, it's like, okay, you're good. Yeah. Don't worry. Like it's the smaller items that you have to be meticulous about. Yeah. Larger ones, less important. Yeah. So
yeah, very much so. And yeah, on the life sim stuff, I remember back when Stadia, rest in peace, or soon to be rest in peace. Back when I tried that back at launch, like one of the handful of games they had for it was Farming Simulator for whatever that year was, or the year before, or whatever it was. And I was like, all right, I mean, this is one of the options. I'll check it out and see how this plays. And it was very much like okay, well, if I want to play this kind of game, I'm going to play a Stardew Valley, or I'm going to play a Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons. Like, I'm going to play something that has more fun character to it as opposed to actually farming. So yeah, I was like, all right, cool that this is a thing that, there are people that enjoy this, but not my cup of tea. So, but yeah, PowerWash Simulator, very fun idea and variation on the strategy. Do you want to dive into Signalis next?
Yeah, sure. So Signalis is a brand new game that just came out. It is a horror survivor with a like the way that they've done it. So it's so unique. Like this might just be one of like the most unique games that I've played in a very very long time. It is a survival horror game. So right off the bat, not up your alley, Trevor.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it is. You play. You're in a like some sort of future, and like and the weird thing is, it's difficult to explain what goes on in this game because it literally jumps around at certain points, and which makes it interesting and like does like hooks me on a way that I wasn't expecting. Because you're a repair robot that wakes up and finds out that your human compatriot is missing from the ship. And so you go looking for them, and you find out like you've crashed on the snowy planet, and it kind of like leads you through this entire kind of like pseudo like mental, like at first I was like, oh, this is going to be like a mental thing. And then the first like zombie thing and like monster attacks you, and at that point I was like, oh no. So it's like you get like cyber zombies that you have to deal with. It has like, I was like, oh, it's like an explorer thing. And then the thing that set me off was I picked up a gun. And when I picked up a gun for the first time, I was like, oh, okay, it's not the kind of game I thought it was. Because I just thought it was like a walk around. You have to like, if there's something there, I'll probably have to hide from it or run away from it or something like that. Something much more along the lines of like an Amnesia or a game like that where you are like powerless. And instead it's like, I'm like, okay, so it's going to be like one of those games. Okay. And it's like, okay, open this up. It's like, oh yeah, here you need like this, the basically security office. It's like, okay, get the badge. Or I'm like, all right. And then it's like, and the gun, like, here's your badge. Here's your gun. It's like, a gun? What? What kind of game is this? And it's done in a way, in a style. I saw somebody say that it's very reminiscent of like PS1 era graphics. So it's very much like a 16-bit, but I don't want to say 16-bit on the like the level, or not 16, 32-bit, but not on the level like Super Nintendo, but much more on the level of like PS1 style of a game and graphics level of a game. And so that's when you're moving around. The actual like cutscenes and interactions that people have are very interesting. It is unique in the way that it has like a lot of people look the same, because I think it's the graphic style, the art style, but also a lot of them are like robots or like androids. And so I feel like that's like intentional as well. It's very unique, very interesting. I found it to be quite like, it's quite something. And I really do think if you're looking for a spoopy game to be playing for the holiday, the Halloween holiday, if you're listening to this on Halloween and you want to get into that kind of like kind of like old like Resident Evil 1 era type survival horror, this is that. It's very cool, very fun. I may not go back to it because it's a bit more on the puzzle side than I usually like in my games. Okay. But it's very much within the lines of like a like Resident Evil style puzzle component to the survival horror.
Cool.
So,
yeah,
very good. Very
good. The only thing I've seen about that one, I think like the main person I've seen tweeting about it is Cam Hawkins, who's been very high on it seems. But yeah, I didn't know much about it. But I now that you mention like it's a Resident Evil like, I'm like, oh, I feel like I probably have seen that, or like a trailer or clips of that or something like that. Or I've heard people, excited about and talking about that game in the lead up to it. So very cool.
I heard about it from Blessing Adeoye Jr. So when he tweeted out about it, he was just wrapped it. It's amazing. People should play it. I was like, okay. And I looked up and I was like, oh, it's coming to Game Pass. So when it came out on Game Pass, I picked it up. And like, I think it's wonderful. It's certainly like, I'm not a big survival horror person either. but it's certainly up there as far as like being like a great game. I really do think, like, do not be surprised if this makes some people's like top 10 games of the year, if not game of the year list, because I can see this being a stealth hit for a lot of folks.
Gotcha. Cool. Then last one you mentioned, Citizen Sleeper, right?
Yep.
Of the Game Pass games.
Yeah. Citizen Sleeper. I originally picked it up and was like going to start playing it earlier this year. Making sure I was right. Yeah, it came out on Game Pass back in May, and I was like, at the time I was like, I don't really feel like I don't really get this, and I didn't end up playing it. And I was like, I just dropped it right off the bat because it's like, you have to choose like one of these 3 things and you're going to be good at some stuff and weak at other things. And I was like, I don't really want to play a game like that right now.
Mm-hmm.
But after
just let me be good at everything.
Yeah, basically. After I played through let me be average at everything. That was my thing. After playing through Wrath of the Righteous, I was kind of in a mood for something a bit more of those like strengths and weaknesses type thing. And so I ended up picking up and like getting back into Citizen Sleeper, and I'm glad I did because the story in Citizen Sleeper is phenomenal. You play a sleeper, which is essentially a person who has, so your original human self made a deal or a contract with a company to go into cryostasis, but their brain was like all their memories, all their stuff about their brain was copied and put into an android. And so you're technically not a person, but you have the full capabilities, understanding, and emotional capacity of a human being without any of the rights. And so you are used for, like, you specifically were used for mining. And you're enslaved so you don't play your original self, you play the sleeper of your version. They're called sleepers because you're the thing that's awake while your person's asleep. And the only time your person can wake up is if you are just like, if you are decommissioned. And so you, as the sleeper, have escaped and gotten to this station. And it turns out that there was a kind of like, so there was a corpo-fascist movement of expanding and colonizing space. And one of the companies that did that created this space station as a way station between other systems. But at one point, the system decided, like the company basically abandoned the people there or were in the process of abandoning them, like treating them terribly. And so there was an uprising, and essentially this is now like a free state in space. And it has a very unique history and story to it that you find out not through like your own individual story, but by working with individuals. So like there are certain things and obligations you have where you're trying to, one, because you are being hunted, because you are property of this corporation, they're going to send bounty hunters after you. So you're being hunted, and so you're trying to hide out. So you have to balance being good at various jobs to make money so you can, buy food, because you still have to buy food and eat and whatnot and sleep. And so you have this entire kind of like makeup of what you're doing. And you meet other characters who, for their own interests, or are helping you, or you, because you can help them, they're willing to help you. One of the things you find out is like you have a tracker on you. And so you have to find somebody who can like take out this tracker from you. And that's an entire like quest and process that introduces you to another element of the game that goes on. Like this hacking element of the game. And it's really, really cool. It's really solid. I can't recommend this game enough. It's not very long. You can actually beat it in different ways at different points. Sorry, my mother was texting me asking me what I want for my birthday. So Citizens, nice. Yeah, there's several different endings, and you can do these things where I made a decision where it's like you have opportunities to go on the run and leave the station. And like, it was interesting because I always felt like I was like, okay, I'll do that and I'll get ready to leave the station. And as that was going, I was like, but I have other people that I'm in the middle of helping. I can't just like leave them.
Yeah.
And so like I've missed opportunities to like escape and end the game. And so I choose to stay on the station. I still get end credits. I've rolled end credits 3 times. Okay. 3 different times. But like this, there's so much going on and it's so interesting. And they added a new like DLC episode that like I tried helping these people, these refugees and stuff, and it didn't work out, and now I'm dealing with the fallout of that not working. And like, because people's stories don't just end because their quest failed, something else is happening there instead. And it's very fascinating. It's very fascinating and very interesting. And the characters are, for being such small little characters and such a small little game, they are so brimming with life. The writing in the game is absolutely brilliant and creative. And like there's a conflict that I had where it's like if I got this tracker taken out, it would screw this other character over in a way. And it's like, how does that correlate? How does that work? And like, and I ended up making a decision on that. And like I like the decision I made. I respect the decision I made. But it's like a whole thing, man. It's really, really good. Like people who have slept on Citizen Sleeper, don't sleep on it any longer. Play it. It's on Game Pass. Play it. It's so good.
Cool. Good.
I mean, highly recommend it.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like something I'll try and find some time for here at the end of the year. Cool little interesting indie RPG sci-fi kind of vibes. Cool.
Yeah, it feels very cyberpunk, but not in a way that's. But it says I shouldn't say cyberpunk. It's space punk, really. Like it's full on space punk with how it's approaching things, and it's kind of like the corporate message and everything. Like, and it turns out like this thing that I was doing to just help myself ended up helping everybody in the station because it unveiled like this like thing that was going on, and it's just so cool. Like the game itself is just really, really brilliantly written and done. And like it's just I can't recommend it enough.
Nice. It also sounds interesting. I've not seen the show, but based on what I've heard of Severance, it seems like a lot of sci-fi is kind of landing on this idea of like, okay, like our real selves will kind of like go on and live their life, but we'll also have these like alternate selves that are basically turned into slaves. And that's like it's a weird vibe that that sci-fi is just kind of touching on right now.
I mean, it's end stage capitalism being reflected in our media.
Yeah, so very, very, very fair. Cool. We will circle back around to some of the other games that you've been checking out. But in the meantime, I want to just touch on some Black Adam thoughts. This is obviously the latest film in the DCEU. Like I said, I'll kind of stay spoiler free on it here since we're only like a week and change removed from it. Ultimately, like it's definitely not a good or great movie, but I had a fun enough time with it. Dwayne Johnson, charming, not nearly like worth the 10-15 years that he's like been in development on this movie for, but like
well, let's be fair, the only thing keeping this movie out of complete and total development hell has been Dwayne Johnson. His interest is the only thing that's kept this thing alive.
He's fun. It's like everybody in the movie is fun. The biggest like crime of this movie is like it's not a great script. Is probably the biggest gripe I have.
That's what I've been hearing.
In particular, like the big issues with Black Adam, and this is how he's been like posed and marketing the whole time is like he's not a hero, he's an anti-hero, and he'll say in the movie, "I'm not a hero," pretty much every scene, but he's never doing anti-hero things. He's always being a hero. Their definition that they're saying of like you're not a hero is if you kill people, and he kills people, but he's killing bad guys. He's killing like foreign invaders in a sovereign nation. Like he's killing invaders who are in
it's literally
an
it's literally an interdimensional gang with ties to Darkseid. Like
but like he will constantly say I'm not a hero, and like the big thing between him and the Justice Society is that he doesn't have any qualms with killing people, but it's like, there's like a really interesting idea and a nugget of an idea in the movie of like the Justice Society has completely ignored and disregarded Kahndaq, who has been overrun for 20 years by Intergang and before Intergang, some other, like they've constantly been a sovereign nation that has been like invaded and led and like ruled over by foreign invaders and stuff. And the entire world has been like happy to let that happen. And it's only when Black Adam like resurfaces that superheroes and the Justice Society like decide to get involved. And so there's like,
see, that's an interesting angle
and
that I found out they didn't really go in.
Yeah, they go into it a little bit. Like they certainly do a better job of like doing that than like establishing Black Adam as an anti-hero. And
well,
so
I think the big thing that I took away from what I've heard from it, so I haven't seen it yet, obviously. Broke ass unemployed man can't go see a movie. It's okay. I'm not hurting over missing Black Adam.
Yeah,
it's not breaking my heart that I can't see it. With Black Adam in particular, like I find it interesting that they say, "Oh, well, he's an anti-hero." It's like, okay, so he kills people, which is that it does fit the qualifications for an anti-hero. That's fine, but part of an anti-hero's journey and part of his story is an anti-hero is not a non-hero. An anti-hero is somebody who is heroic in spite of their very serious unheroic flaws. Like that's what an anti-hero is. Deadpool is an anti-hero. Red Hood is an anti-hero because they don't have qualms of crossing a moral line or two, but when they do so, it's for like at their core, even if they're doing it for selfish reasons, at their core, they're still heroic individuals. And it's like the moral muddiness is what makes anti-heroes interesting, and it feels like that got lost in translation for this movie.
Yeah.
Because I very much like the idea of if Black Adam's thing was, I'm going to take a stand for this country and these people and fight for them, and that means killing these intergang members and calling out the Justice Society for, like, you guys came here because of me, not because there's been an interdimensional gang with ties to a literal, like, evil god hanging out here for 20 years. Like, at what point are you guys the Justice Society? And because I remember somebody said, I was listening to, said their whole thing was, we're here to ensure global stability.
Yeah, that's the line they say in the movie. And I'll jump in to point out, like,
I think that would be a really great moment for him to be like, what about this stability?
And that's the thing, like, other characters confront them on that. Black Adam does not. Like, Black Adam is just the, like, Black Adam is the character that the, like, citizens, the normal civilian characters kind of, like, point to and be like, you said you came here and you said you're here for global stability. We finally have somebody who's standing out there for us, and that's when you show up and you're trying to take him out. No, screw you guys. Like, we don't want your help. We have our champion. But like Black Adam is just like, don't call me your champion. I'm not your champion. But I will, like, kill these people or whatever.
Yeah,
and I'll also jump in and point out Intergang. You mentioning it is the first I'm hearing of anything. Like, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Interdimensional gang, but like they make no mention of Darkseid or any reference of that. They're basically just like faceless military goons who have like a occasional weird tech that like is like kind of almost Flash-like in that it's like, oh, they have like a, flying jet motorcycles or whatever that like they push a button and it like phases through space, a little bit or something like that. So it's like that's like the most interdimensional that they get. But yeah, mostly it's just they are they are synonymous with bad guys from any Uncharted game or something like that. Just faceless.
See, that's disappointing as well.
Yeah.
And I don't need them connected to Darkseid because that's usually like in a story, it's like unveiled that they have a connection to Darkseid. And we definitely don't need that. Like, we don't need that. That's fine. But the fact that they're like, oh, they're just an invading force. It's like, well, what are they like? There's a whole lot you could do with that. And that's my biggest takeaway from hearing about Black Adam is it's like, there's a lot of good in this movie, but it's just executed so poorly.
Yeah. There's a hint of an interesting Black Adam movie in there. There's a hint of an interesting Justice Society movie in there. And then there's the hint of this interesting, like, oh yeah, like this like foreign invaders in a country that is constantly been like overlooked or whatever. It's almost this weird like um obviously there's a lot of parallels that are gonna just innately happen between DC EU and Marvel and stuff. And so it's like this idea of like, oh, Kahndaq has this incredibly rare mineral Eternium, a la, you know, and it's hard not to draw the comparison to Wakanda and vibranium.
Hmm.
But whereas Wakanda was able to like kind of hold on to their power and whatnot, Kahndaq has kind of been constantly ruled and constantly had other people taking their voice and power and stuff like that. And so it's like, oh, that's an interesting story that you could play with, and especially putting it into a more global and kind of like a real world kind of vibe to it. And yeah, they go half-ass at kind of like each of these stories. But on the Justice League or Justice Society one, I will like Aldous Hodge is in here as Hawkman. I've loved him since Leverage. Like
Hmm.
he's always fun, and he's fun in this too. He's arguably like the lead opposite of Dwayne Johnson in this, as kind of the head of the Justice Society team. And he's fun, but he's very thinly written, and he's largely written there to reinforce every time Black Adam says I'm not a hero by saying like, of course you're not a hero, you kill people, heroes don't kill people. And so like they're both on the same page of Black Adam not being a hero.
Which
But
makes, yeah, that's another thing that I was frustrated with.
yeah,
I say frustrated. I haven't seen the movie. I don't know.
yeah.
I watched like 3 reviews of it to like get the gist of what the movie was about, and
Mhm.
like the thing that everybody kept saying and hammering home on, it's like keep saying he's not a hero, and everybody's like you're not a hero, and it's like okay, I'm like, but that doesn't make him an anti-hero. It's like
Yeah.
I feel like it was like that's probably a script or something that could have gotten a lot more polish.
Yeah. But alongside him, Pierce Brosnan is in there as Dr. Fate. Pierce Brosnan just incredibly charming and wonderful, and he's like fun every time he's on screen in this. Like
The fact that he was cast as Dr. Fate is perfect casting.
yeah.
Holy crap. I will give him that. The casting that they did for the Justice Society members, Hawkman and Dr. Fate, perfect casting.
Yeah.
Could not have had better casting.
Yeah. And like they established that like those two have this like long storied history and like friendship in the Justice Society. And then the other two Justice Society members are basically like new to the job. You get Noah Centineo from P.S. I Love You, or to All the Boys movies rather.
It's about P.S. I Love. Oh,
yeah, sorry,
okay.
yes,
Yeah.
sorry. I was thinking the second one of those, but yes, to All the Boys movies, Noah Centineo in there as Atom Smasher. He's incredibly fun and charming for the beats that he has, and he's very much like obviously a lot of these characters predate their Marvel counterparts or whatever. Notably, Dr. Fate predates Doctor Strange, of course. But given that like MCU had Doctor Strange beat Doctor Fate to the screen, a lot of Dr. Fate feels like he's filling that role. A lot of Atom Smasher is like filling the Ant-Man, Giant Man role. And then you have Red Cyclone. I'm trying to Cyclone, Quintessa Swindell. She's wonderful, she's charming. I feel like I'd seen her in things before, but I looked through her IMDb and did not. But she's a lot of fun. She basically gets like one scene of backstory, of like very tragic backstory that's just like kind of thrown at you out of the blue, and then they just never really do anything with it. But her powers are fun and like visually interesting. I really enjoy that her whole vibe as Cyclone. She's taken it upon herself to model her like look and appearance after the Wicked Witch of the West. And like the like she doesn't verbally call attention to it or anything, but like the first time you see her, she's got like a little backpack with a flying monkey on it. You see the like white and red ankle or like knee-high socks a la Wizard of Oz and stuff like that. And so and her once she's like in full garb, she's got a lot of emerald in her outfit and stuff like that. And it's just like I was like, that's a really cool visual design, and I really like that. And then I looked in her character a little bit, and she's absolutely like leans into that in the comics. So I was like, that's really cool that like I got that just visually from what they did with her. But yeah, like she basically has like one, line where she's like, here's my tragic backstory, and Adam Smash is just like, that's really heavy, and then they just never like come back to it. So those two end up getting like really short shrift in terms of like story stuff and narrative, and it's one of those things that, because this is like 3 half movies kind of all like stitched together, like it would have been cool to see like this Justice Society as like a standalone, like let's get these characters together and let's like get to know more about each of them. But we don't really get that. And then like, a lot of the weird like Black Adam stuff, like I didn't watch a ton of marketing going into it, but like the first trailer gives away like big twists of the movie. And it's like, why did you just put those things out there as like the narrative component of the movie, if it was a thing that in the movie you're like leaving for like the last 15-minute reveal or something like that at the end of the movie? It's like, this is weird. The whole third act is bad. It's a bad kind of ending. It is the epitome of like, all right, let's make the bad guy basically just a mere version of the good guy kind of thing. In this case, just like Sabak, a big bad demon figure. One of the characters is like, supposed to be a precocious young kid who is basically just constantly skateboarding everywhere, even when it really doesn't make sense. Like in like what is it, like Captain America, Winter Soldier, or Civil War, one of those where like they're doing the like fight down the like staircase that kind of like goes around 4 walls. Like there's a scene in this that is basically like down one of those kinds of staircases, and the kid like gets to one landing, skateboards across for like 3 feet, and then gets off his skateboard and like walks downstairs again. It's just like, you did not need to make his entire personality that he skateboards. That didn't need to be a thing about this character. So it's just like,
that's rough.
Very weird choices and stupid things like that. But yeah, like overall, like I went in with basically no expectations. And walked away with like, that was a fun enough time. I won't be mad if I see these other characters, spin up in other things. A lot of them had a fun energy and were bringing a fun vibe to them, to like just not great material, but like they were having fun with it. And so I had fun with it. And there are a few lines in particular that like got like really good, like laugh reactions, most of them coming from Pierce Brosnan. And so yeah, like overall, this was very much like a 6 or 7 out of 10 kind of movie. Not mad I saw it. It was a fun enough way to spend a Sunday morning, I think, is when I went and saw it. But yeah, it's also one like I never really need to think about this movie again, or like certainly watch it. I hope that at some point they put together Shazam and Black Adam and have like a movie with those two, because I think it would be really fun to see Zach Levi up against The Rock and kind of, having them battle with powers. But like they make almost no mention of the fact that like Shazam is also a thing in this universe and a character and the next big movie for DC. So it was very odd on that whole side of things. But yeah, overall, like it was a fun enough time. There are certainly some spoilery things I could talk about. One of them is basically, like the biggest, like the mid-credit spoiler of the movie was spoiled for me Thursday night before, like, I want to say it was like, I saw an article basically being like, here's how blah, blah, blah happens in blah, blah, blah at like 7:00 on Thursday night. I was like,
what?
Fuck off. And basically like started blocking Polygon because it was just like, it wasn't one of those articles that was like, here's how that, spoilers thing happens in the Black Adam mid credits or whatever. It was just like straight up, here's the character that's in here, and we're just going to completely spoil this whole thing an hour after screenings have started. I was like, fuck this noise.
Wow, that's such a dickish thing to do.
But then, like, if you've watched any kind of entertainment news this week, you probably also know what character I'm talking about, because Warner Brothers and DC have been like, poster shouting it to the roofs. So
Mhm.
it's like, that's weird that they didn't like let that be more of a surprise for people, but it's whatever. It's fun. I'm interested in potential ramifications of that casting news more so than the actual like the actual context of the movie makes it very weird and like, okay, if that person was available this whole time, why the hell did you bother with the Justice Society of America or whatever? Like, why were they around? But yeah, it's a fun enough movie, but a very disposable popcorn kind of thing. Um, it's like I had more fun in this than I have most of DC movies, but that's such a low bar. And I think a lot of it is because I went in basically expecting nothing from this. So I was pleasantly surprised in, how much some of the characters that I did enjoy and how much I got out of them. In particular, Aldous Hodge, again, very fun as Hawkman, Pierce Brosnan, like everything he did as Dr. Fate. I was like, yes, please. More of this, please. So yeah. That's those are my Black Adam thoughts. I will shout out just because he seems to be like thrust into this role, like Marwan Kanzari is like the big bad of the movie. They try and make him his like being the big bad a big twist, but it's like you see it basically in the immediate opening sequences and stuff like that. It's like, nope, he's clearly the bad guy. And I feel bad for him because like he seems to just be getting typecast in this role because he was Jafar in the live action Aladdin. The only thing I've seen him like not be a bad guy in was the Old Guard movie on Netflix. And like he's good. Like I really like him in the Old Guard, and I really liked him as Jafar in Aladdin too. But he just keeps seemingly having to like elevate just the worst possible writing, and I feel bad for the guy. But I hope he finds better opportunities because I for the most part really enjoy him. So yeah, that's Black Adam. Do we want to throw it back over to you, Cam, for some of your other game experiences? We talked last time you were on the show about Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. You mentioned you finally made it through that one. I think last time around you basically had done everything to do in the first few acts of the game. You finished up Pathfinder. So yeah, tell me what your kind of like follow-up thoughts on that one are.
Phenomenal game. I've put 127 hours into it before I wrapped it.
Okay.
Absolutely phenomenal game. Cannot emphasize enough how good it is in regards to it being I think it's like a B+ type game. It is, but the thing is, it's a phenomenal B+ game. Like I would definitely say if I would probably rank it like 4 out of 5. But like a high 4 out of 5. Like this is a truly good game for what it's doing. There are definite hiccups and problems that this game has as far as just like that I don't know how you could address these things differently. They're doing some very interesting complex stuff that's very, very cool. And sometimes bugs happen and like that's just the way it is. Like it is a game that I think is truly special in the way that it is I shouldn't say special. That's not the right word. I think the game is truly great for it being a not so special game. The characters are interesting enough to keep you going through it. The story is interesting enough to keep you going through it. There's enough of a hook to keep you pushing forward. But honestly, what really keeps you going in that game from my perspective was really the gameplay. As just like having an opportunity to kind of go back to like kind of like Dragon Age Origins style combat, where it's much more of a like there's going to be time. It's not turn-based, but it takes time for your moves to kind of load up. And then there is a turn-based system that you can use if you'd like to. That I thought was pretty interesting. I thought that it was for what it was and what it did. I thought it was pretty good. Or sorry, not pretty good, pretty great. And just overall had a really good time with it. But it was definitely a placeholder for me. Not something that I would consider because it's not going to be in the top 10 games of this year, but it's certainly a game that I was able to like put a lot of time into. As far as just like finding something to do. Unemployment's been a bitch.
No, been there. But sometimes those like just the satisfaction you get of like pouring a bunch of time progressing through like getting this thing while you aren't able to get things going in other aspects. It's definitely a nice thing to keep your mind off of, you know, the more struggles you might be having or something like that.
It was definitely a good escape. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we talked about this either last time we talked about Path of the Righteous, or we've talked about it at some other point recently. Like I remember Days Gone being that one of those games for me when I was in between jobs there for a little bit of like I put so much time into that game in a very little, you know, space of time, like time wise. And it was just incredibly like, I have probably more of a fondness for that game than like, you know, obviously than the reviewers did, because that was a game that got kind of dinged by kind of the crunch of having to try and play so much of that game in such a little review window time. Whereas like for the most part, people who played the game after the fact and kind of played it at their own pace seemed to really enjoy the different, you know, action elements of that game. And I very much enjoyed it kind of in both camps. Like I enjoyed that there was so much for me to play so that I could just kind of get lost in it for a few days because that was what I needed at that time. So yeah, I can appreciate Wrath of the Righteous being that kind of game for you. And then lastly, I think we have for you Monster Camp. Tell me about Monster Camp.
Yeah. Monster Camp is a phenomenal follow-up to Monster Prom.
This is that game. Okay.
Yeah. Monster Camp, it's Monster Prom 2. Monster Camp is its official title. I had an absolute blast with Monster Prom for a very, very long time. I think Monster Prom is like one of the best games in its genre with the way that it approaches a lot of like really just funny stuff, like a funny way of approaching a dating sim game and making it very much a like the way that they approach and the way that they do it, I think is just truly phenomenal. The writing is great. I think the thing that they did this time around is this game literally came out 2 years ago. I was like looking it up. I was like, release date October 23rd, 2020. Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Just got around to playing it.
I remember seeing it, I think, at PAX East when we went to PAX East that year. And I was just like, oh, that's a thing I will, you know, think about or check out. I never had played the original, or I'd played like Monster Prom maybe at another PAX, and then I'd watched like other people stream it and stuff, but never played it myself. And so Monster Camp, I remember seeing that and being like, oh, that's a cool thing that like good for them for kind of being able to do that follow-up thing. But yeah, I was like, that definitely came out a while ago.
This year they came out with Monster Road Trip, which is a road trip. So the theme of Monster Prom, of course, is high school prom. Theme of Monster Camp, of course, is summer camp. And then the theme of Monster Road Trip is a like road trip out to like a Vegas-like city. And so it's the approach in each of these games, I think, is pretty different. I haven't played Road Trip yet. I'm excited to at some point later, hopefully this year, if not next year. But getting around to Monster Camp was just a fun way. The great thing about it is they've switched up like most of the dating options of who you can date in the game. They've brought in characters that were like side characters or supplementary characters in other games or in the previous game in Monster Prom and made them now actual like love interest options. And the approach to them is a lot of fun. There's some carryovers. Of course, fan favorite Damien, the fiery, red-blooded red demon, is right up there. He's there as well. It's a really fun, great game. I highly suggest people check it out. It's super cool. If you haven't played Monster Prom at all, it's such a fun game. The great thing is that it can go up to co-op 4 players, and you each take turns doing your thing throughout the day. Mm-hmm. And so it can just be a lot of fun. Just like, because the writing in it is just still absolutely brilliant. Very much just like niche to the different genres of writing that, and being a parody of like what they're in reference to. One of my favorites was from Monster Prom, where essentially one of the girls, Miranda, she is a, not Miranda, it might be, I think it's Miranda. It's, she's a mermaid, basically like a mermaid girl. Like she's Ariel. She has like a fork collection and things like that. Like it's very much that, but it's like, it plays on it where it's like, oh no, she's like the like daughter to like this massive like fascist authoritarian sea empire. Mm-hmm. And just like plays straight into that idea of like, oh, she's a princess. So she's terrible because she's part of a monarchy.
Yeah, I just looked her up. Miranda Vanderbilt, described in the Monster Prom wiki as a sweet mermaid princess who is as cute as she was genocidal.
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. It's great. Like the entire setup that they have for this is just absolutely phenomenal. The summer camp one is like enough changes, enough people are doing different things. There's like a rival summer camp with like weird XPs of like characters from like once again side characters from prior games and new characters in this game. And it's just such a wonderful time expanding the cast, expanding this kind of like quote unquote universe. And the best part is it just doesn't take itself too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a lot of fun, a lot of parodies of a lot of game genres, and I highly suggest you check it out. It's super good.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I think that's probably going to do it for this week's episode. Thanks for holding down the fort on things to play, Cam, while I've been busy with other things that we'll probably reveal here soon-ish in honor of our upcoming anniversary, i.e. tomorrow, on the Tuesday that after this episode goes live. No, like probably not going to see much in the way of like immediate new shows and stuff to announce, but some ideas and discussions about the coming year of content here for That Nerdy Site. But yeah, thanks. And also thanks for, even though you haven't seen it, thank you for joining me in the conversation on Black Adam. So yes, lots of fun here. That's going to do it for this episode. Let us go around our metaphorical table with any plugs we might have. You can follow Cameron at RevCabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, give a massive shout out once again. We mentioned it at the top of the show. Mention it again. That D Plus show over at youtube.com/That Nerdy Site. Go check out what we've done with when we did those episodes because they are a lot of fun. I was in half of them. I don't think we gave enough love to Werewolf by Night. Werewolf by Night was a phenomenal episode. I think we all had just an absolute blast talking about that film. I mean, Hocus Pocus 2 as well, but I really felt like Werewolf by Night was like a standout that we did.
Yeah.
And so I highly suggest everybody go check that out. It was an absolute blast. Just all of our October stuff, I think, for that D Plus show was phenomenal.
Yeah. Here, you can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. Again, I echo that. And looking ahead, I kind of sent out among our team a mock-up of basically potentially what the rest of the year will look like, that D Plus show wise. As I said, we're looking at She-Hulk season 1 wrap up this week. I sat down and watched Tales of the Jedi, the 6 little mini episodes that came out last week. I think that'll probably be a good thing for next week to dive into. Then we have Disenchanted coming out, and then Andor season 1 is going to be wrapping up. So we got a lot of fun stuff. The Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special is going to be in there, obviously. When we get into our Christmas month for December, we have the Santa Claus 3 to wrap up our trilogy of Santa Claus 3 stuff, and also the Santa Clauses will be coming out here in the next couple months, so that'll be another thing we could discuss. The Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special is going to be in there, certainly. Maybe dive into, because we do alongside the Santa Claus, we've been doing Home Alone movies the last couple of years, so maybe we'll do Home Alone 3 or the seemingly much maligned Home Sweet Home Alone that they did last year with the one of the kids from Jojo Rabbit. Maybe we'll see what all that has in store. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on that D Plus show in the weeks ahead, or if you're looking for some last minute Halloween flavored content, go check out any of our That D Plus show episodes from last month. Other than that, on the YouTube side of things, or on the Let's Play side of things, I've been continuing along my Skyrim playthrough. I believe I pretty much, if I didn't wrap up the Thieves Quest this last week, we're basically right at the end of it, coming along in this week. Yeah. Lots of Skyrim Let's Plays out there, but that is going to do it for us. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for listening. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.